So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the open evening tonight. My name is Barry Rowe, and I'm the program lead for PE and coaching here in Portobello Institute. And I'd just like to give Joe and Emma an opportunity just to introduce themselves before we get started.
Thanks very much, Barry. Yeah, my name's Emma McLaughlin, and I am the program lead on the psychology and coaching degree, the performance analysis degree, and research.
I think Joe's screen may have frozen, or she's just terrified. But Joe works with us in admissions, and she will be here to answer any questions that you might have in terms of the application process and I suppose the admissions process and all the elements that you need to consider should you wish to pursue a course with us here in the Portobello Institute. So just see now. So I am just going to begin our slideshow here for you, and just once again to welcome you to our Sports Open Evening here this evening, and just to welcome you all and to just highlight that here in the Portobello Institute we like to take a very hands-on approach, and we also try to make sure that all of our students get that one-to-one experience whereby you can always reach out to us as your tutors, and also if you ever have any questions to make sure that you do ask. And even during this session I would urge you all to maybe ask questions during the presentation, and we will of course endeavor to answer those. And then also you will have our contact details to reach out to us if you have a few questions maybe further down the line or in just a couple of days or something might dawn on you. By all means, you can always contact us then as well. And just also to highlight that in the Portobello Institute we also work with various universities as our accrediting bodies. So as you can see, we have partnerships with the London Metropolitan University, Liverpool John Moores University, and the University of Essex throughout our various sports programs, and we'll be going through that in greater detail during the course of the evening. And one of the first things we like to do in these open evenings is we like to ask a few questions. So first of all, just to get a sense of where you're coming from yourselves and what you might be interested in, I ask you just to see on the chat there, you'll see a poll appear, and I'd like you to just consider what it is that you're actually interested in, perhaps with the Portobello Institute and the sports program. So we have the BSc Honours Sports Therapy, the BA Honours Physical Education, the BSc Honours Sport and Exercise Science, the Graduate Diploma in Physical Education, the Pgcei, the Masters in Sports Performance Analysis, the Masters in Clinical Exercise Prescription, and obviously then we'll have a little Q&A at the end as well there. And then just to continue with the questions that we would have for you as well, one of the things that we'd be interested in finding out as well is what format of learning appeals to you the most. Would you be interested more in full-time study, or are you somebody who might perhaps be returning to education, or you might not feel that you have the time to commit to that full-time program and perhaps would prefer the blended approach? So if you wouldn't mind just popping those answers into the poll as well. That'd be great. Okay. And then just the last question that we'd like to ask as well is, beyond your studies, what do you like to do? Would you like to perhaps continue your studies, or have you very much got a focus on delving straight into your career of choice? So if you wouldn't mind just answering that as well, please. Okay, so just to take a look at our BSc Honours Sports Therapy, this is obviously a 3-year course and it's accredited by the University of Essex. And you can see here that the first year will be comprised of looking at the foundations of sports therapy, human anatomy and biomechanics, then human physiology and training principles, sport research skills as well. And then in year 2, you'll be looking at building on what you learned in year 1, and you'll be continuing with sports and exercise physiology, sports rehabilitation, clinical examination and assessment in sports therapy, and then looking at peripheral manual therapy, psychological factors in sporting teams and individuals. Sports science research methods is continued there as well. And looking then in year 3 at advanced sports therapy techniques as you start to build on your knowledge and gain more experience in that practical setting. You would then also be involved in a work placement, which you can see there, and then looking at business development and health studies to help you maybe start to consider how you would operate if you were to set up your own business and your own practice, or if you had any other ideas as well. It's a good opportunity there to explore those ideas and truly understand those elements. And then looking at your sports science and therapy dissertation, which is pretty much the culmination of all your studies as well, where you have that opportunity to go and really delve into the area of research that you would hope to, and also show your research skills in that regard. And then finishing with clinical exercise physiology as well. And just looking at the BSc Sports Therapy in greater detail, I mentioned it earlier on the previous slide that there's a huge work experience component where you will be gaining 230 hours of supervised experience. And then there's a student clinic that's run weekly. And it's also a course that's accredited by an international body, the Society of Sports Therapists. And it's you will be registered as a student of the University of Essex. Even though you'd be studying with us here in the Portobello Institute, your accreditation would be with the University of Essex. And it's really important to understand that there is a huge work placement element, because as you can imagine, in a field such as sports therapy, you would need to gain that practical experience in order to deliver in the real world as well. And then if you are interested in becoming a physiotherapist after completing the sports therapy degree, there are different avenues that you can take. And looking at our partnership with the AEC University in the UK, it'll offer a pre-registration in the Masters in Physiotherapy from autumn 23. And aside from that, our graduates have progressed to study physiotherapy as a postgraduate in the following Irish or UK universities. So UCC, that's a 2-year course, and then the Royal College of Surgeons Ireland, there's a 3-year course there in UL. You have a 2-year course, and then there's additional masters in programs in the UK universities. and they take usually in around 15 to 18 months, depending on the university or the mode of study. Sometimes they have different formats that you can follow. But the main thing is that if you wish to continue your studies, you can continue by looking at all these different programs that are available to you. So just let me check here. Just checking if there's any questions coming through. No? We're okay. So looking at the BSc Sport and Exercise Science, I'm actually going to hand you over to Emma, who will discuss this with you.
Thanks very much, Barry. I'm just going to open it on my screen because my eyes are showing my age here on this one. Just a second here. Okay. Yeah, so on the sports and exercise science, just that's the slide you're on, Barry, isn't it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So what you're looking at really in this one is, I suppose, a capulation of all things that we consider to be sports and exercise science. It's not a million miles away from what you'd see on a phys ed course, but it's definitely more expansive in terms of health promotion, biomechanical principles, and sort of physical activity, health interventions, that sort of thing. So as you can see, I'm not going to run you through all your list of modules, but they look at physiological responses to exercise. Okay, so again, how are we physiologically adapting to exercise? What exercise prescriptions may be needed for different health issues? You're looking at the foundations of psychology. So again, that's I suppose why people may be inclined to not engage in exercise, or on the other side, how do we get people to be more physically active and, I suppose, sustain that physical activity? You have biomechanics, which is, again, those biomechanical principles are how the body moves and how it should move correctly. So if you're looking at, being involved in basketball teams, or, I suppose Gaelic football, anything where there's landing, that's just one example. It would look at your landing technique and your jump technique through gait analysis, and is that correct? And obviously you have your research methods. So again, that's kind of the big thing around university, is we want for students to understand that the best advice we can give as practitioners or PE teachers, and that comes from research and best practice. You'll see that they follow through the biomechanics for the 3 years, your physiology, and as I was saying, some health interventions, physical activity promotion, and then obviously you have cardiovascular and environmental physiology on that one. And Barry, if you want to tip on to the next slide, I can do that one too.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Barry. So again, when you look at, I suppose, what we're looking at in terms of exercise physiology and exercise science, and again, it's that constantly evolving specialism. And I suppose it's one of those courses where you can lead down into many different avenues. So it can look at behavioral, life sciences, I suppose rehabilitation, exercise programs, and health promotion. I think people very often quickly assume that the sport and exercise science is definitely around health promotion, but it can be more physiology, exercise prescriptions, rehabilitation, and things like that. And then if you look at your career pathways on the next slide, you can work with sports industries, athletes, coaches, government bodies and governing bodies. So that could be something like, research into young kids, and I suppose, technology and devices and how that may be impacting the levels of physical activity young children have these days. Sports technology companies, and of course Ireland's a flyer in that one. It's definitely ahead of a lot of other countries, where we have big tech companies, like GPS units, you Stats Sports, you Performance Sports, you Kitman Labs, things like that. Obviously you can progress into a master's of your choice. That can be anywhere from exercise physiology to psychology, performance analysis. And obviously we do the performance analysis and the clinical exercise prescription here at Portobello.
Thank you so much, Emma. And now I will take you through our BA Honours in Physical Education, which, as you can see, is also accredited by Liverpool John Moores University. And you can see how, once again, there's a lot of practical experience delivered over the course of your 3 years studying the BA in Physical Education, where we will be looking at, say, personal and professional development and how you as a student would then be able to, I suppose, reflect on yourself and have a look at where you are now and try to visualize where you'd like to be, perhaps at the end of your course or in the shorter and medium timeframes as well. You'd be looking at psychology, contemporary issues in physical education, looking at physiology and applied pedagogy as well, and an introduction to skill acquisition. And then continuing on in year 2 with your personal and professional development and gaining more and more work experience and learning how you would manage groups in that school setting, where in your first year you might be looking at completing more of an observational placement, and then looking to actually start to build on your own delivery in years 2 and 3, and then looking at applied pedagogy 2, your research design, contemporary issues in physical education 2, and then physical education, teacher education, and skill acquisition continued on from first year. And it's constantly building on your experience, your knowledge, and also helping you to gauge, as I said, those classroom dynamics that you would hopefully be entering into at the end of your studies, and just developing your own competencies and your own levels of confidence in that arena. And then in year 3, we have the Make It Happen project plan, and then looking at applied pedagogy again, physical education, teacher education, continuing with your research project, and then looking at contemporary issues once again in year 3, and then looking at the Make It Happen implementation, where you would take your project plan and implement it at the end as well. And once again, just to reiterate that there is a lot of practical elements to each of these modules, but where you're looking at the theory and the principles behind your contemporary issues and applied pedagogy, and then also your teacher education, how would you then draw upon those elements to enhance your own delivery and the experience, hopefully, for your students down the line as well. So that's the makeup of the 3-year degree course in the BA in PE. And when you are considering becoming a PE teacher, just to understand that, once again, there's 50% educational content in physical education, and also a lot of practical skills and workshops are delivered during your 3 years, so that you can enhance your own competencies and confidence in a classroom environment, and then you can achieve a second-class honours degree. But then your practical hours, as I mentioned, are achieved more in years 2 and 3, but in year 1 there are elements where you will be involved in a placement from an observational standpoint, just so you can observe other practitioners and see how they operate, and then draw upon that experience to see how you can best deliver your own PE sessions down the line. And then excuse me, we have the Pgcei and Masters in Physical Education, the Portobello Institute, that will be coming online. And then other forms or other formats could be the Pgcei, which is 1 year in the UK. And there's the 2-year PME in UL also. And then you'll be able to apply for your registration with the Teaching Council at the end of that. And then we also have a graduate diploma top up for sports graduates in Portobello Institute. So anybody who wants to become a PE teacher who has a background in sports science, there is a graduate diploma available for those graduates to also add to their current studies or their current qualifications, and then be able to move on to apply for the PME as well in UL or other master's programs as well. And then similarly, there's the graduate diploma in PE, and it's a top up for non-sports graduates, which is essentially the same program but with additional modules to gain the necessary qualifications and to have studied the necessary modules to apply for the PME as well. And just looking at the Pgcei, the Postgraduate Certificate in Education International, this is an academic qualification with a philosophy informed by the Teaching Council of Ireland and the Teachers Standards, the DFE of UK. And basically, it's a postgraduate certificate and it's internationally recognized, which is the important difference here. And it's a advanced level study and a qualification for those who may want to enhance their own teaching and educational abilities and their competencies in that field, and to be able to then apply for more management and senior roles in education as well. So that's something that people may want to consider if they are hopefully going down that route as well. So please do consider it and reach out to us. And then I'm just going to hand you over to Emma again for our Masters in Sports Performance Analysis.
Sorry, Barry. Yeah, I'm just moving my slides along here.
Not at all.
My poor eyes.
We're on page 17.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. It's just my old eyes. That's all it is. Yes, so the Masters in Performance Analysis, as Barry was saying there, provides you like an in-depth sort of relevant factors. So I suppose the difference really is the undergraduate is a broad scope on any degree of a topic. And then what a master's obviously entails is more specified knowledge. So what you're looking at in the Masters for Performance Analysis is really in-depth analytical skills. And I suppose it goes back to the point there earlier when we were talking about career options for sports science. A lot of sport and a lot of industries have gone down the route of, okay, look, we can collect all this data, but if we don't understand what it means, then where do we go from there? Okay, so some of these analytical skills can include injury management. Okay, so that can talk about player load, training load, and we have software now that can flag when a athlete or a player may be more susceptible to injury, which is, I suppose, in professional sports, you know, really fundamental for them, both in terms of keeping their players not injured, but as well as financially, especially in professional sports like Premier League. You don't want to be playing for players and then not have them available due to injury. So that's one side of things you're looking at. You're also looking at analysis in terms of key game factors. So you'll see probably if any of you are sports fans, regardless of the sport, Twitter in particular will come forward with lots of snippets and bits of data around games. And that's our way of understanding, okay, well, what did it actually mean? Does every time I'm in possession of the ball in whatever ball-based sport, does it lead to a score? And if it doesn't, why not? And there could also be roles down oppositional analysis. So again, are you brought in to analyse oppositions the team you work for will be playing? So again, the Premier League would have an awful lot of analysts and they would analyse, you know, say you were working for Liverpool, you'd analyse, okay, what are Liverpool doing well? You know, how are our back four doing? But then you'd also be analysing Man City if it was Liverpool versus Man City. And then also on this slide here, we have the Masters in Clinical Exercise Prescription. So again, that's a really in-depth focus on clinical exercise prescription if you're working in allied healthcare. So allied healthcare basically is just, it's not just physical. So it's not, say, sports therapy. It's not just athletes. You can be looking at, you know, helping stroke victims, helping diabetics, as well as helping, you know, rheumatoid arthritis and how that may look in terms of a prescribed exercise plan. So it really is that next level up, the MSc in clinical exercise prescription, is to say that the you know, the factors that we need for both medical and sports. Can we develop those programs? Can we provide those programs? And can we encourage the general public to adhere to those programs? Thanks, Barry.
Okay. So that is everything that we hope to cover this evening, everybody. And if you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to ask now. And also, just so you can see here, there's Joe's email address as well, if you would like to email Joe directly, and her phone number as well. And then you can also look at all of our courses that we mentioned this evening on the Portobello website as well.
Thanks, Barry and Emma. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, just to say as well, there's a link there to book a call with myself. So if any of you want to book a one-to-one call, we very much take every student on a case-by-case basis, and entry requirements are on a case-by-case basis as well. So depending if you're a previous Leaving Cert student of the last couple of years, or possibly a current Leaving Cert student, or possibly someone who's maybe been out of education in a while, there's various different entry requirements that we can use depending on your background. So a one-to-one is just a really good way for me to hear more about yourself, hear about what you've done in the past and how we can kind of meet those entry requirements for yourself. If you have no sports background whatsoever, or have possibly been out of education for a while, we also have an anatomy and physiology course that you could do prior to starting the degrees that will be starting in October, either the blended or the full-time. So that's a really nice way to use the kind of next couple of months in order to meet the entry requirements, give you that foundation of knowledge in anatomy and physiology, which you'll go into more detail in all of our degrees, or all of our level 8 degrees, which will go into more detail in their year 1. So yeah, certainly book a call with me. Email me anytime or give me a call. I'd be more than happy to chat to you. It's my favorite part of the job is just chatting to you and hearing more about yourself, and how we can make education more accessible for you. So yeah, we have lots of time for questions now, so we'll go through any questions that you have, but hopefully speak to some of you soon and hopefully have some of you join us in October.
Hi Keith. Is it possible to do this course? I would recommend you have a chat with Joe. It's just in terms of the practical exams and the practical elements of the course, that you would need to have maybe a better chat with Joe to see if there could be something worked out there. It's just, some degrees are theory, and they're online, or they're theory based, so you can catch up on that theory if you're not based here. But because some of the courses are very much practical, they have a lot of practical modules and a lot of practical elements to it. It would probably be better if you had a more detailed discussion with Joe there.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Emma. Yeah, it would depend massively just on what course you're interested in. And as Emma said, a lot of our students would be based in Dublin or within Ireland, or travelling distance at least. With the blended option, it is weekend learning with typically one weekend in the college in Dublin. But yeah, you would need to be able to come in for those practical elements, as some of the courses will have there will be attendance criteria that needs to be met. So yeah, Keith, certainly reach out to me and I'll have a wee chat to you one-to-one on just which course you're interested in, and kind of how frequently you would be able to come to Ireland for any of the practical elements.
Cathal, no, you don't. That's the kind of difference now that phys ed has become a Leaving Cert exam subject. So it's not a requirement you have a second subject to become a PE teacher in Ireland. Some schools may want the teacher to have another subject that they can teach, depending on the school. But some schools, and now as we move towards more schools implementing phys ed as a Leaving Cert subject, as an examinable subject, it's no knockoff that some teachers don't have a second subject. I know a lot of people, and they just teach PE in schools. Keen, just like Joe was saying earlier, each person is kind of looked at individually, for entry requirements. So not that I'm passing everything on to poor Joe, but entry requirements are very much on an individual basis. So it's best to reach out there to see if there's any requirements you may need for the phys ed course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just note there as well, we have an interview process as well that we would do. So you can initially reach out if you just wanted some general queries answered. Then my meeting link is there, meeting link with Joe. That's just sort of a more general, if you just want a little bit more information, a little bit of just kind of a one-to-one chat with me. But then we will have another call that is an interview. So you can jump straight to interview if you would prefer, if you've kind of had all your questions answered maybe this evening, or you've possibly already spoken to me. And I'll put the interview link in there as well, where it would be a more in-depth chat about yourself, your background. You'll also answer some pre-interview questions as well, that are more specific to yourself. So we will make sure that we're putting the right students on the right courses. So we want to make sure that, you know, what you want to do after the 3-year degree with us meets the demands of, you know, the course that we'll be providing, and what you want to go on and do afterwards. We just want to make sure, essentially with that interview, that it's certainly you meet the entry requirements, and all your questions are answered as well. So it's another opportunity to ask a lot of questions at the interview stage as well, and also specific to yourself. So I'll pop that interview link in as well.
There's just a question from Iris. What size are your classes? So it can very much depend, but I think that's one of the things definitely Portobello pride itself on, is the smaller classes in comparison to some of the bigger universities. So it's not a case of your lecturer not knowing your name. We're all quite a nice, nicely knit group. So they don't exceed 45 to 50 in most courses. And like that too, you'll have your own personal tutor should you have any problems. Smaller class sizes, you know, knowing everybody by name, knowing people's different backgrounds and different working situations and stuff is definitely one of the benefits to Portobello. So they're never 300-400 people in a massive lecture hall, and you know, we wouldn't recognize if you pass us on the street. That's definitely not what we're about. And I'm not overly sure, maybe Joe or Barry could jump in here, but they've also asked what is the starting date for the BA and P February? Was it February 2023?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Iris. Yeah, so in the past we have run blended versions of the year one of our BA and PE, our sports therapy, and I think it was our sport and exercise science as well, one in February 2022. So we don't have confirmations of those start dates just yet, but based on last year, it was an early February start. We'll know more towards the end of October on those February course start dates. At the moment, we've just got the confirmation for our October blended courses and our October full-time courses. And then the idea with starting in our February cohorts on the blended program is that then you can go straight into your year two for October 2023. But we will have more confirmation and information on that in the kind of coming months, typically mid to end of October for the February courses.
Has anybody else got any questions that we could try and answer for you here this evening, folks?
Yes, it is, Iris. Yeah, it's a full calendar year, so it's from October right the way through the summer as well. So it's 3 semesters, not like our degrees, which would be kind of end in May, June. The Pgcei would go right through the summer, and typically end August, September time. So one full calendar year. So typically you would need both the Pgcei and the Masters in Physical Education, and that would make up the kind of UK equivalent qualification to the postmaster's degree in education in PE, which is currently offered in University of Limerick. With the Pgcei and the Masters in PE with Portobello Institute, there will be a more flexible delivery method. So it means that you could still maintain, full-time work alongside studying those 2 one-year programs. So in order to be a fully qualified secondary school PE teacher, the idea would be that you would do both the Pgcei and then follow it up with a Masters in PE, which would be having a start date of October 2023. So it's not currently on our website at the moment, but it should be on there soon. I think Per Barry's frozen there. Yes, Iris, yeah. total of 5 years for the BA and PE, postgraduate and the Masters, yeah. Perfect, some really great questions there. So the Teaching Council will take every case individually. So similar to ourselves, they will need to have a look at your undergraduate degree and what you've done following that, so your Masters and your Pgcei. So we will have more confirmation and information from the Teaching Council soon on that, because obviously the Pgcei is a new course for us for October. That would be the aim for those 2 courses, to give more people more options to stay within Ireland and do that extra element, because obviously we know with the PME and PE and UL, they have limited places each year and it would be full-time learning. Yeah, so Cathal, that would be an additional option. Absolutely. No problem. And keep an eye on our website, and we'll probably have a lot more information sent out as well if you're on our mailing lists regarding the MSc and PE. That'll be coming for October 2023. So a lot more information on that will be coming soon. But it is very exciting. Super. Yes, that's correct, Iris. It will be done with the Liverpool John Moores University for the Pgcei, same as our BA in physical education. No problem at all. They're all fantastic questions and really great to see the interest there. Hopefully I'll talk to a few of you one-to-one as well. Yeah, absolutely no problem to book a call at a time that suits you. Now is a really good time to book a call in and just get more information regarding yourself and your own situation and entry requirements and things like that, and get any questions answered as well.